Welcome to the Awakening Intuition interviews. I have with me the great pleasure of Dee, who's a transformational coach. She's highly experienced, and I'm really, really excited to find out about what happened when she listened to her intuition and what happened when she didn't, and any tips that Dee can share with us. So welcome, Dee. Thank you for coming on board.
Yeah, thank you so much, Paula. Yeah, intuition. It's this going inside, right?
Yeah.
And listen to an inner knowing. And yeah, maybe for our listeners, let's take a time to make this a sacred space that we can switch off from our ordinary awareness to a more extraordinary awareness and drop really inside our bodies. Because for me, using these practices, and we can do it at any place, at any situation. The other day I read from somebody who is a CAO, and she also uses this in her meetings when she's asked for advice. This is, well, I have to take a moment and really listen in. What do I really hear or feel inside? And for us as women, I feel it's important when we go inside that we connect with our deeper, wider center in our belly, where we have our own feminine power. So your question was, what happens when I connect with intuition and what happens when I don't?
Yes.
In general, looking back, I can say that when I look back on my life, I had to learn to listen to my intuition. And when I did not listen to my intuition, I would find myself ending up in situations where I didn't feel comfortable. It could be a job or a situation with somebody. And I really had to learn and to trust that there is an inner knowing inside of me where I'm connected with source, from which I can connect with the quantum field and receive higher information than my logical mind can think of. And there is a beautiful explanation by Gabor Mate. He is an expert in trauma. And he says, well, actually, our thinking mind is actually made for situations that we are really in fear. And when we want to create something new or start a conversation with somebody, we can't come from our minds because it's actually the thinking of the past, and it's not the thinking of the present or tuning into our future. So for me, one of the deepest experience was when I was working for the government, and I was a health policy maker, and I was experiencing that the way things were going were not aligned with my higher truth. And although other people around me were saying things like, well, that's just the way things are, I felt if I would continue with working on this project, it felt really as everything in me said no. And I remember a conversation with a physiotherapist about it, because I asked all kinds of support in this process, and he said, well, you just can go back and start a new project. And it felt like if somebody was asking me if I was a better woman to go back to my marriage where I will be better. That's how deep it felt.
Wow.
And that set me on a very deep journey to learn more about the importance of intuition.
Yeah.
And that most of us mostly are in jobs or in relationships where we are not invited to listen to our intuition. And I think that's the main reason why so many women are depressed or end up in burnout or ending up in relationships that are not really working for them, in which we cannot grow because we have forgotten how to listen to our intuition.
And so what happened when you realized that your intuition was saying, every cell in your body was saying no?
I left. And I made and it's not that I just left. I let them know what my opinion was about it. And I wanted to have a great leave, meaning that I knew that what I felt inside was actually the right direction. When we are really from a place of service, then there was something truthful in what I felt was the right direction. So I also, through that feeling that is truthful, I was able to make arrangements with them in which way I would leave. And I got so interested because I wanted to understand what's happening here. And so I went to do another bachelor degree and used my study to really investigate what is going on in the culture of the government. And I remember the moment, the evening before I had my speech about my dissertation or my thesis. And I asked the universe, I think this is so good, I can have a cum laude. And I received a cum laude for it. So it was a huge journey of discovery. So I found all these, could say, the outer blocks for women to really become the loving, most wise versions of ourselves. And then I realized, but there are also still blocks inside of me. And that's when I started to study feminine power, to learn about what are the blocks, the inner blocks for women that withhold us from really sharing our truths in a truthful way, in a powerful way. And that is still an amazing journey to learn about using our right brain more, so that we become really whole people, not only our left brain, but also our right brain, and learning about what are the inner blocks for women.
Sounds like you really honored yourself as a human being in doing that.
Thank you for naming that. Yeah. Yeah.
And then when you didn't listen to your intuition, what happened?
I call it distraction.
Yes.
And there are so many things in our world that can distract us. And especially for women, I believe, especially those of us who have had a job already, and when we feel like we want to grow higher, then it's part of it is the spiritual path. And stepping up the highest ladders of Maslow's consciousness pyramid, we could call it, right?
Yeah.
Which means that we understand. I don't have a religious background, but I can understand that's what Jesus meant, that we are the way, that we are the light, that we are the medicine for the world, that there's something inside of us, a wisdom, a truth, a perspective on things that only I or only you have, and that's what the world is, what the world needs. Yeah. So I'm now really on the path of supporting other women to voice their wisdom, because we need their wisdom. And through deep conversations, because we are so shy as women, because we hardly are ever in a container where we are really asked for, what do you really believe? What is possible for you? And what do you really see as a possibility for humanity and for the planet? And maybe when you ask me first, I share only a little bit because I'm too shy.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm afraid that you will say, oh, that's ridiculous. But when we create a safe space, I can share it again from trust that you can see me, that you can hear me, and then I can share more of me. And that is such a beautiful process in conversations with women.
Yes, I agree. Totally.
So coming back to your question, it feels like what I feel now is creating a pathway where I don't let myself be distracted by the outer noise of what's going on the planet, and supporting each other to grow into a higher consciousness.
Wow.
And what I see possible, because I'm also doing a course now on really learning to channel. I think humanity will, from our intuition, we will experience maybe this year already, because there's so much happening in the energy fields of Mother Earth and the energies from the galaxy. I think many, many people will be, how would we call it? How would you call this in English? Because my native language is Dutch. When you know what you know, or you can hear truths that are not coming from your physical mind. How do you call it?
Well, I would call it divine knowing.
Okay, divine knowing, right? Or divine seeing, or divine tasting, or right. Yeah. And I feel that's where we are going as humanity. And the more we trust our intuition, the more we learn to trust to this divine information, the quantum information.
I love your vision, Dee. I think it just warms my heart, and I really hope that it warms other women's hearts to hear you speak of this inner knowing that you have. So any tips, any suggestions on how, as women, we can come away from the distractions and really, as you obviously, so obviously do, trust your this inner world of yours?
Yeah, it's beautiful, right? It's a rich inner world. So rich inner world.
Yeah.
Tips. Having conversations with women that you trust, and with women who can see the greatness in you. So they don't look at you from the perspective of who you were in the past, but who can sense what is possible for you.
Yeah, beautiful.
And go in nature as often as you can, and let your heart be touched by a robin. You say robin in English, right?
Yes, robin.
Yeah. Or I'm a fan of blackbirds.
Yes.
So when you know, like when the sun is setting, open your window and listen to the blackbirds in your garden or in the surroundings, because they're talking with one another, and it can touch this connectedness that we have with all the non-human animals.
Oh, to help us remember that we're part of the web of life. Right? Beautiful, Dee. Oh, yeah. I've just so loved having you here with me and our conversation, and I'd love to take it further at any point, because I know that, you know, your vision is what we need as women, and your passion is so visceral that your conversations will inspire many. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you so much, Paula. It's
Thank
really
you.
lovely to be in your presence, because it's also your presence, you know, that makes it possible for me to speak my truth.
Mm. Oh,
And I think that's what we can do for one another.
yes, indeed. What a wonderful first Awakening Intuition interview with Dee. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Bye.